mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power! Fight the power!
Rhythm is a dancer. I need a companion. Girl, I guess that must be you. Body like the summer, for you like no other. Don't you tell them what we do. Don't tell them, you ain't need. Don't tell them, you ain't need. You ain't even gotta tell them, don't tell them, you ain't need. Don't tell them, you ain't even gotta tell them, don't tell them. Know you say you're down with it. Won't tell them how you hit the ground with it. Girl, you know I'm from Chicago. I act a fool.
This is the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. I am your host, Adrianne Shropshire, and Andy, I'm so glad to be back in the studio. I feel like I've been hosting the Black Pack for the last couple of weeks. Yeah. From any number of places, but excited to be back in the studio. And for folks who typically watch on YouTube, we're back. You can actually see us in here. So we have a great show for you all today. We're going to be talking about everything from the Supreme Court decisions that have happened. I know who thought that there were going to be more. We'll talk a little bit about that, what a shadow docket is and why they're making decisions outside of their normal term. One of the decisions that they made this week was around education and allowing the administration to go forward dismantling the Department of Education. So in this hour, we'll be discussing that and what that means for our schools and our communities and our kids and our teachers with Adoku Onyeke Crawford, director of the Advancement Project's Opportunity to Learn program. We're also going to be talking about how people continue to fight back against this administration through protests. Yesterday, there were more than 1,000 actions across the country to celebrate the life and legacy of Representative John Lewis through Good Trouble marches. Maybe some of you all participated or helped to organize them. In the 5 o'clock hour, we're going to be talking to April Albright from Black Voters Matter about those events and what they mean and what's next for continuing to demonstrate resistance. And we'll touch base with our friends at the Black Alliance for Just Immigration on the ongoing fight against kidnappings and deportation. We'll be joined by Mariki Alamsagud, who is an organizer here in Los Angeles for Baji. But I wanted to start out talking about, I guess, what everybody else is talking about, Andy, and like cannot get out of the news, in part because the president of the United States won't let it get out of the news, and that is this ongoing story about the Epstein files, and I don't know if folks are following it. Andy, I think you've been following it maybe a little bit, right? So I'm gonna just run it down. You tell me if these are things that you knew or did not know. But essentially this week, the Department of Justice said that they were not going to release the Epstein files. That has been red meat and fodder for Trump's base for forever. And they said they weren't going to release it. I'm going to just run this down like we in the group chat, Andy. Okay, so they said they're not going to release it. The MAGA base goes off. Right. They're all over the internet going off on the fact that they're not releasing these files after they have been talking about them for years, about what's in these files for years. Trump is shocked, can't believe his base is, turning on him, right? Because he is who he is, he then turns on them, right? He insults them. He tells them that they're weak, tells them that they need to move on, right? So why are you, like me think thou dost protest too much. So he writes a long little post on his social media. The DOJ, they say, okay, well, let's give them something. So they say, we're going to release the grand jury testimony, which no one asked for. I'm not sure why they're releasing grand jury testimony. And if you're doing that, are you releasing grand jury testimony for other things like, any number of the investigations into Donald Trump? So MAGA goes off. That ain't what they asked for. They didn't want that. They go off again. The Wall Street Journal publishes an article about a birthday letter that Donald Trump sent to Epstein talking about their little secrets. We then have, of course, people weighing in on all sides. Nancy Pelosi weighs in and says that the Dems should not be talking about it because it's a distraction. So I'm going to pause here because we can't say everything is a distraction, right? We can't say that because the thing that people are upset about isn't about the economy, right? Or isn't just about what she called, kitchen table issues, that therefore it's a distraction. If part of the central argument of the Democratic Party against Donald Trump is that he is depraved and unfit, then when there are allegations of that depravity, then that's not a distraction. That's a part of your central argument against him. And again, obviously we know that the Epstein case is about abuse. It's about trafficking of minors over years. It's about rape. It's about all of these things that I don't think that we should be calling these things distractions. They actually are central to why this administration should not be governing our country. But I digress, as Tavis would say. But that was her reaction. Then we got a little story, right? Like we did get a little distraction, right? We got a little bit of distraction. The Trump administration says that that Trump has varicose veins, right? Like they try and distract us with a health issue, right? He got a little problem with his legs. His circulation's not right, and then we see these pictures of Trump and his swollen ankles, and so they're still kind of going crazy. I mean, it really does feel like they don't know what to do with this. I don't think they expected their base to go off. I don't think that they expected the conspiracy theories that have been floating around for the last years to be turned on them. And then, of course, in this last moment, we have Trump do what he does, which is essentially to sue the Wall Street Journal today about this article that they published. And so, again, with his whole, I will bring, media organizations to their knees by suing them because they cannot withstand me. So that's where that is now. We'll see what happens. This is like a bigger deal than I think that they imagined. I don't think that they expected it to be all of this. Whether or not, as I've seen some people say, this is going to be his downfall, I kind of doubt that. His base is, knows already that he is has been adjudicated in a sexual assault case, and they didn't have a problem with it. So we'll see where this goes. But it's just been all over and nonstop in all the group chats. So I thought we just throw it in here as we're trying to wrap up or break down the news of the week. So we have a great show. Again, we're going to be talking about education, the administration's ongoing attack on administration with our friends from the Advancement Project. And then we'll also be talking about, how people are still out in these streets, right, saying that they don't consent to what is happening. They do not agree with what is happening in our country. So all of that, when we come forward, stay with us. This is the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah. At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you change your mind.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time. Whenever news breaks, while we're on the air, it's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580. And we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. And I thank you, thank you.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now.
800-550-9651.
Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS.
Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start.
Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems.
We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau.
You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call
800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651.
Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You don't talk to me like that. You don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
This is the Black Pack, and I am your host, Adrianne Shropshire. We have talked many times on this show about the Trump administration's attack on the Department of Education, both about the defunding, about what, sort of the removal of civil rights protections within the department. We've talked about it as resegregation of our public education system. And it's all those things. And it's ongoing. And it feels like, almost every day we could be talking about what is happening in terms of them trying to, really break apart and end public education as we know it in this country. So I'm so pleased to have someone who has been doing this work at the Advancement Project, and we've had our friend Judith Brown Dianis on the show many times, talking about any number of things. But one of the things that we haven't talked about as much is the education work of the Advancement Project. So I want to welcome Adaku you're gonna help me with this, Onyeka Crawford, to the show and say thank you for joining us and to talk about this specifically, because the Advancement Project, actually, I think people think about the Advancement Project as a voting rights organization, and it is certainly that and has historically been that. But there's also so much more work that you all do in partnership with community partners across the country, and I feel like the education work is so central to that. And so I want to so thank you for joining and for just talking to us both about the work, but also about what does this mean for us? So welcome to the show, Adaku.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Adrianne. You got my name pretty close. It's Adaku Anyeka Crawford. And I am an attorney at the Advancement Project. And, as you probably know, Advancement Project is a national racial justice organization, but we're also a movement lawyering shop. And what that means is that we operate different than the traditional public interest law model where, some attorneys get together and they take a look at what the law is, take a look at court cases, and they figure out an issue that they want to bring before the court. And then they look for, people to kind of fit the fact pattern that they want to litigate. Movement lawyers, we talk to people who have been historically left behind by the laws that are, and have them lead the way because they're the ones who are directly impacted in these unjust laws. And so they're the ones who have a insight into how these laws can be changed, what policymakers need to do, how the courts can address these issues. And we, as movement lawyers, listen to folks on the ground, hear what their vision is, and then open our little legal toolbox and say, well, here are some ways that we can help achieve that vision. Maybe it's assisting in a campaign to change a law, or maybe it is litigation, or maybe it's, filing complaints with an agency like the Department of Education. And that's why, we're involved in this work because, the Department of Education, especially the Office for Civil Rights, has been one of the, tools in our toolbox that we can offer to folks on the ground. And so this administration's attack on the department is, just taking one other avenue that we can use to get some justice.
Right. And I think that, because you said our little toolbox. In fact, the toolbox used to be not that little. Right. But they keep chipping away, right, at the at what what we can do just in terms of relief. So thank you for that. Thank you for like describing what movement lawyering looks like. I think that people are often aware that there are lawyers out there doing things to try and make things better, and I think that's I've always appreciated the fact that that the Advancement Project and Judith talk about the work that you all do as movement lawyering because it connects you all, right? Doesn't right. Sort of keep you separate, right, from the work that social justice and racial justice organizations are doing. It really does, pull you all in a way that I think that folks don't often think about it. So let's talk about the Supreme Court decision that allows the Trump administration to continue its effort to dismantle the Department of Education. So first of all, I was saying the other day when the decision came out, I was saying to someone, this Department of Education decision, the Supreme Court, and they said, what are you talking about? Why are they still making decisions? Their term is over. How did this happen, right? But there's this thing that many people may have heard about called the shadow docket. And so can you just say, how is it, right? Like they have a term, they're supposed to decide cases, and then it just feels like they're deciding stuff all the time. So what is that?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you asked about that because that's something that I, even in my legal career, something that is a fairly recent phenomenon that has come to like our attention. And so, as you noted, this ruling was part of the shadow docket, which is different from the a regular docket that the Supreme Court takes oral arguments on and, decides the merits of the case. And so let me take a step back. So like one thing that, we learn when we start out in law school is that the legal process is very long. And so it can take years to even just have a case work its way through the district court, the first court. And then several years before that decision gets appealed to an appellate court. And then another few years before the Supreme Court even decides whether or not they want to take up the case.
Right.
And, that involves like discovery and going through motion practice, determining what evidence you can exclude and include. And then the judge writes an opinion. And it just takes a very long time so that, when you're challenging a law or a rule or trying to get some kind of like ruling that's called on the merits, that can take so long. It can take years.
Yeah.
And so sometimes a court, especially when we're dealing with things, because there are actual stakes and lives in the balance when people file lawsuits, courts will sometimes grant what's called a preliminary injunction on an expedited
We've
basis.
hearing a lot about those lately. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so the standards for granting an injunction is basically whether or not you have demonstrated that you are likely to be successful when the full case is tried on the merits. And then also the likelihood of what something that's called irreparable harm if an injunction is not granted. And so in this case, the district court, there were plaintiffs from like 20 states, teachers, and then also the affected employees who were fired during this reduction force. And so they filed a lawsuit saying that the actions that the Trump administration took were illegal, and also asked for a preliminary injunction so that they wouldn't get fired, and so these cuts would not impact states.
Right.
And the district court found that, the Trump administration didn't even try to prove that they had followed the proper procedure to initiate this reduction in force. Because all of this is written down in law. You have to follow the law before you can fire 1,300 employees.
At least you used to have to follow the law.
Exactly.
Right.
And they didn't do that. And also, when they made those firings, they said that this was part of the plan to eliminate the Department of Education.
Right. Yeah.
Again, that is not something that Donald Trump can do.
Right.
That takes an act of Congress.
Right.
It has to go through the House, the Senate, and then he signs it. And that did not happen.
Right.
And so the district court said, so they clearly didn't follow the law. And also look at all the harms, the irreparable harm that would result if we do not grant this injunction. What will happen is that 1,300 civil servants will lose their jobs, but then also the Department of Education will be just hamstrung. That's understating it. They will just be devastated and unable to carry out its mission. And what that means is that all these students who have, for example, complaints with the Office for Civil Rights, who say that they are being denied an education because of discrimination, when will their complaints be investigated? When will they get justice? Yeah. And so it just has so many other downstream effects for the millions of students who depend on the Department of Education to function well. And so the district court took a look and they granted that injunction, and a court of appeals affirmed that injunction. And the Supreme Court, using an emergency docket that is supposed to be a way to keep the status quo in place until the case eventually works its way up to the Supreme Court on the merits in 4 or 5 years, using this emergency docket, this shadow docket, in an unsigned opinion, giving no justification for the decision, just said, we're lifting the injunction. And that is effectively a green light to let this administration act in an unlawful manner, and just carry out its plan to resegregate schools.
And so this is why I think we all I think we have all, if we questioned it before, we sort of all arrived at the place where we believe that the Supreme Court is itself doing irreparable harm to Americans and our democracy and our rights. But when one of the things that just strikes me is that you said is an unsigned decision, so it's like no one even has to take responsibility for it, right? Is that correct?
Exactly.
They don't have to say this is why we're doing it. They don't have to provide any justification or rationale for the decision. Is that right? Like there's like a concurrence and there's a whatever and a yada yada, but that's not true here, right?
Exactly. It was unsigned. I will say that there was a dissent that was written by Justice Sotomayor and joined by Justice Kagan and Justice Jackson that pretty much said this is lawlessness, and that the court is acting in a manner that is dangerous, essentially, and that it is giving a green light to lawlessness, and that there are major concerns, and so. I think you can read that as those three justices dissenting from the opinion. And so, which way the other 6 that didn't join likely went.
Right.
But it's tough because, people look to the Supreme Court, and the reason why they issue decisions is so that lower courts know how to interpret the law. And so when you have this unsigned opinion that gives no justification, it really is, also carrying out the Trump administration's agenda for chaos,
right,
because there's no way to determine exactly what the reasoning was behind something that is blatantly unlawful.
Right. And those 3 justices, I mean, not always the same time. And sometimes, they don't join each other's dissents. But certainly Justice Jackson has been consistent in saying, I'm going to speak up. I don't know what the rest of y'all are going to do, but I'm going to tell you why this is bad. And I think Justice Sotomayor, too, it's just so important, I think, that they have been willing to explain why these things, the decisions of the court, the recent decisions that the court are making, why these things are bad, right? And as opposed to just sort of leaving it and making it very clear, I think, in their writings, again, Justice Jackson in particular, making it very clear in the writings specifically why this is harmful, right? Specifically why it's harmful to democracy, yes, also why it's harmful to the rule of law, right? And so I just think, I mean, it feels really important that they are, even if there wasn't, even if the other side didn't say, delineate, right? And for all the reasons why you just said that's not good, but that they came out, I think is really important because it gives us something to look at. Okay, so when we come forward, I want to talk with you about, and so what does this mean, right? What does the ruling mean? What is the impact and the implications for our community? So more with Adaku Onyeka-Crawford when we come back. We'll get into the sort of nitty-gritty of what this means. Stay with us.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Timmy Eswick with BIN News Now. President Trump signed the so-called Genius Act into law. It's basically a bill that deals with cryptocurrency and creates regulations for certain types of cryptocurrency called stablecoins.
This could be perhaps the greatest revolution in financial technology since the birth of the internet.
According to the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas, more black people own cryptocurrency than whites. Both Democrats and Republicans supported the bill. To the race for the New York mayor's office. Zoran Mandani, a socialist who won the primary, sat down with Black House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. But so far, that meeting did not produce an endorsement. Word on the street is that some moderate Democrats are having a hard time deciding whether they'll endorse Mandani based on his past comments about Israel and policing. Mandani also met with AOC this week. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
It's a tough drive right now in West LA, southbound side of the 405, loading up at Wilshire Boulevard. Delays in stretches all the way to Palo Verde and Long Beach. Let's look at the northbound side of the 405. That slows down out of Irvine, leaving the 133. And the drive remains very heavy as you continue towards the 710 freeway. Another tough drive is in Corona. This is the southbound side of the 15. That drive jams up, leaving the 91 freeway, and it remains tough all the way to Temescal Canyon Road. Also very slow right now is the 57. This is out of Anaheim. Northbound delays from Catella to the 91 and ahead in Brea from Lambert to the 60.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Major League Baseball Players Association is advising Latino and Hispanic players to carry their documentation wherever they go. The memo was sent out to players on all 30 teams in response to the ongoing immigration raids conducted by ICE in Southern California and around the country. 28% of the players on opening day rosters were born outside of the U.S. The majority of international players in Major League Baseball are from the Dominican Republic, Venezuela, and Cuba. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred said the league has talked with the Trump administration to help protect their players. The first HBCU football game this season will be broadcast live on ABC. Southern University and North Carolina Central will get national exposure when they meet up in the SWAC MEAC Challenge on Saturday, August 23rd in Atlanta. Kickoff is 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, yo, come on. Here come the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power!
JP Morgan Chase offers tips for the local business owners in 2025. Small business landscape is ever changing, and the Los Angeles market is no exception. A startup or legacy business, revisiting your mission statement and recalibrating offerings can renew opportunities for growth and innovations. Programs like Chase for Business Coaching for Impact gives entrepreneurs access to expert guidance, helping you streamline operations, strategize your growth, and navigate complex challenges. Businesses with a clear sense of purpose can navigate any challenge effectively, but also build stronger customer loyalty. Visit chase.com/coaching for impact for more information. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach? Transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal? Prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to The Black Pack, and we are back with Adaku Onyeka Crawford, the director of the Advancement Project's Opportunity to Learn program. And so before we went to the break, we were talking about just the Supreme Court, its decision making, the ways that it is, out of line, out of pocket, all the things. But can we just talk for a second about what they decided? So essentially, they decided that the Trump administration could go ahead and fire members of employees of the Trump administration. And so this is sort of in line with all of the mass layoffs, right, that the administration has been doing across the federal government. But obviously, if you are firing employees, then you are effectively making the department unable to actually fulfill its duties and responsibilities, as you've said. But we also know that we've heard and you know, it's been reported on that the department itself is withholding something like $7 billion, right, from public school districts across the country. So can you talk to us just what does all of this mean, like in real terms, for our communities and for the schools in our communities?
Yeah, I mean, what this means is that the president is taking us back to a time where only the most privileged families, breed wealthy white families, were able to access quality educational opportunities. And when you think about it, you know, why do we have a Department of Education? Well, the reason why we have the biggest influx of federal investment in public education dollars came in 1965 when, you know, President Johnson, you know, as part of his Great Societies program, that's where he signed the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, which gives billions of dollars in K-12 schools. It was also around the time he signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination in federally funded education programs. And it included like the Higher Education Act, which gives, you know, allows people to be able to afford to go to college who would not otherwise be able to afford that. And the reason why that happened, it happened 10 years after Brown v. the Board of Education said that separate but equal is unlawful, and states were still resisting, you know, integration. And so, you know, because of the work of the civil rights movement and our civil rights leaders, fighting for change, you know, we have had this federal investment that has lasted for over 60 years to step in where states were not filling that void. And so when Donald Trump says that he's going to take education back to the states, what he means is we're going to take the education back to 1950s, 1960s, when states could ignore majority Black and brown school districts and starve those districts for resources, and there was no backstop to it. And so that's what this, you know, reduction in force means. You know, it means that, you know, the Department of Education was already short-staffed. You know, it is the smallest secretary executive branch agency. Before the rift, there was about 4,000 employees compared to like the Department of Housing and Urban Development that had like 9,000 employees, or Homeland Security, which has 250,000, you know, employees. And so they're already doing more with less. You know, I actually worked at the Department of Education before joining Advancement Project. And while I was there, you know, we issued this report that showed that, you know, compared to the 1980s, you know, in 1981, the Office for Civil Rights had 3,000 complaints. And then in 2024, we had 2,200 complaints. So that's an increase of 7-fold. And do you know how much staff we had compared to 1980s? The staffing had decreased by half. So our caseload had increased by 7-fold, but the amount of staff who was doing that work was less than half of what was happening in the 80s. And so this has just been a decades-long project to, you know, claw back the winds of the civil rights movement. And so, you know, that's why this reduction in force is so harmful, because, you know, the department is already like, you know, on its kind of like being scrappy and doing what they could with what little they had. And now they're being asked to do even less. And then also the administration is trying to illegally withhold $6.8 billion that Congress already appropriated 4 months ago. And Donald Trump agreed to it. And so, you know, Congress holds the purse strings. They say what money needs to go out, and it's the president's job to faithfully execute the laws, spend that money in the way that Congress designated. And that's why it's just
at least that's how it used to work. Right?
Right.
It used to work
Right.
that Congress held the purse strings, and when they appropriated money, that money was supposed to go toward what those appropriations were. I mean, I think we saw this week, right? Congress move or the Republicans in Congress moving forward these rescission bills, right?
Rescission, yeah.
Right. Basically saying like, yeah, okay, we know that we appropriated that money for these things, but now we're saying we don't want that money to go to those things because they're things that Donald Trump doesn't want. Right. And so it just, it feels like, I guess the other question, I mean, yes, for all intents and purposes, we are a one branch of government democracy right now. Right. There is a single branch of government where both our Congress and our courts have abdicated their responsibility and capitulated to the executive branch. So that is how things seem to be running right now. But I guess the question is both right now, but also in a world in which, we're not living on, Earth 2 or whatever. What Congress should be doing something about this. Right. And so what would that be? Yeah. What would we need Congress to do in a moment, assuming that we get to, the elections 2 years from now and, whatever, there's a change in who's running the Congress of the United States. What is it that Congress could be doing to correct both the $7 billion that are being nearly $7 billion that are being withheld, and then also this utter decimation of the Department of Education and what feels like an attempt to take us to, like you said, all the way back to what education looked like in the 1940s and 50s.
Right, and honestly, we have Congress is the last frontier, because the court has indicated that they are not going to hold this out of control executive to account. Right. And really they're the one that you referenced, midterms next year, and there are consequences if Congress does not act in a way that, the voters want them to. And so the things that they can do is, not pass the rescissions package that okays these $7 billion in impoundments. Right. And we've seen I'm always looking for, some silver lining, some sign of hope. We have seen some members push back on this on a bipartisan basis. Mm-hmm. So earlier this week, there was a group of 30 Democratic senators that issued a letter decrying this impoundment of the $7 billion funds. And then shortly thereafter, a group of 10 Republican senators also issued a letter saying, yeah, we appropriated all these funds in March, and it is your job to use the funds that we appropriated in the way that we outlined. Mm-hmm. And so that is that is you got to look for your wins one way or another. Right. And so that is something. And now they need to follow through. Yeah. And some things that they can do if the administration still continues to deny these funds, they can hold congressional hearings. They can subpoena members of the administration. They can hold them in contempt if they do not respond to those subpoenas. They can make floor speeches. They can do so much more to shine a light and actually, note the lawlessness that is occurring within the administration. Right. We are supposed to have 3 co-equal branches of government, and since the Supreme Court has abdicated its duty to be a co-equal branch of government, Congress needs to step up to fill that void. Well, and I also want to emphasize. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, well, and hopefully the the members of Congress, Republican members of Congress in particular, actually do care something about their constituents, right? Because the impacts of these cuts are on a broad range of communities in their states and people. The people that they represent. So, I mean, I think that's some of what we're seeing is that they're starting to hear stuff from their constituents. But the point that you made that's most important is, do they actually follow through. So I'm gonna ask you to hold that thought, the thought that you just had, like hold on to that for just a moment, and then we're gonna, when we come forward, I want to talk a little bit about what you all are doing, how you're approaching this, and then your thoughts on what folks should be doing and what they should be preparing for in their community. So all of that when we come forward. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
You have cancer. The 3 words no one wants to hear. Of the cancers that impact our community, lung cancer is the most dangerous. More people succumb to lung cancer than colon, breast, and prostate combined. Black men are 12% more likely to develop lung cancer, and cases for Black women are rising. Early detection and comprehensive treatment is the best way to beat this dreaded disease. Providence is a research leader in multi-cancer early detection, offering blood tests that identify fast-spreading cancers that don't show symptoms in early stages. The Providence Los Angeles Integrated Network Cancer Program determines best protocols for each patient, interacting with specialists who share experiences, perspectives, and new findings specific to each case. With over 1,000 board-certified physicians, including top oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, and nurse specialists, Providence delivers whole-person care that understands your culture, values, preferences, and priorities. So, if you hear the words "you have cancer," all you need is faith and providence.org/cancer.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
You don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
We are wrapping up our conversation with Adaku Onyeka Crawford, the director of the Advancement Project's Opportunity to Learn program, about the, ongoing undermining attacks, attempts to dismantle. So Adaku, Judith Brown-Dianis, the executive director of the Advancement Project and Advancement Project Action Fund, had a reel on Instagram, I think yesterday, where she, was sort of walking through what the decision meant, and she talked about when the secretary of the Department of Education, the WWE lady, when she became the secretary, that she said that she was on a final mission right? And that final mission was to eradicate the Department of Education. And so it isn't, I mean, this is in Project 2025, right? It isn't like the Supreme Court was suddenly, was completely unaware, right, of everything that this administration said from the campaign through the last 6 months in terms of it, attempting to get rid of the Department of Education and therefore set us back decades and decades and decades. But what can, as the Advancement Project is thinking about where we are now, how are you all approaching this? And then also because I know that, one of the things that the Advancement Project does that is so important is that you all partner with local groups, right? You partner with local organizations who are working on issues of education. So how are you all approaching what needs to happen next? And then what do you say to folks in communities about how they should be preparing for the sort of next phase of this fight? Because I will also say it's not over, right? Like they're doing lots and lots of stuff and we see it every day. But this is not over until we decide that it's over. Right? This is a government of and for and by the people. So how should people be preparing?
Right. And so I think now is the time to turn locally, organize, figure out how these actions from the department, from this administration, will affect you on a local level. Because what we know is that with this impoundment in particular, that there were, summer training programs that were already happening that were put on pause because they July 1st they didn't get the money they were expecting, and school starts in a few weeks for many people. August is around the corner, and so will there be enough money to provide aftercare and before care that was dependent from some of these funds? And so I think it's a time to figure out, talk to your locals, your elected officials, your school board members, figure out how it is that these actions from the department will affect you on the local level. And then also, band with other organizers, other advocates to ask your local elected, ask your school board members, and demand actually that they step up to provide quality education, whether that's, after school programs or, English language services for people who are learning English as a second language. How are they going to fill that void? Demand that they do that, and demand that they also, reach out to their senator, reach out to their congressperson. There were lawsuits filed challenging the illegal impoundments. Not a single Republican attorney general is on any of those lawsuits, but there are, 26 red states that stand to lose money. Just because you have an R behind your name doesn't mean that this won't affect you. And that's all the more reason that you should, even if you are, a progressive person living in a red state, you're still a constituent and your voice still matters. And it matters. And it's more powerful if you are able to find other people, organize, and together make those collective demands. And so that's what we are advising people to do. Get educated and organize, and then make your demands.
Yeah. And it feels important to, as you were talking, I was thinking about all the compounding factors here, right? So if we're losing, after school programs, or we're, losing summer programs for kids, and we're losing, aides, right, in the classrooms, and all the things that obviously, the majority of budgets for school districts come from the state, right, come from property taxes, et cetera. But there are specific kinds of things that are really important for school districts, right? The kinds of money that comes from the federal government. But the sort of compounding factors that I was thinking about when you were talking about, especially like the loss of after school programs or the summer programs, also was like the terrible, outrageous, disgusting bill that passed, and the sorts of impacts on families that bill is also going to cause. So when we think about the cutbacks to nutrition programs, right? Both those in schools, right, but also nutrition programs that families rely on. There really is, and to your point, like Republican, whether they're senators or they're members of Congress, the idea that they would just be sacrificing their constituents for all of this just seems really kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, it shows that it seems like, this administration and the people who support it, they don't care about children. I think, I was listening to the show in your lead-in about talking about the brouhaha with the Epstein tapes on the list. And, that's another way that, this administration is demonstrating they don't care about children. Right. But we care about our children, right? We care about the future. We care about our communities. And, I know it's the problem is, like, we're going to be in a tough situation because, like, this billions in dollars of federal funding is being withheld illegally. And while the courts work its way out and those attorneys generals fight that, and hopefully Congress steps in and urges the, administration to release those funds. We need to make our own plans. And so, like, what are we spending money on that hurts our children that could be spent to support our children? Maybe taking another look at, like, surveillance and criminalization and other things that, are harmful to our communities. Maybe we don't spend money on that, and instead we spend money to make sure that children are looked after school, or that English learners have the supports that they need, or that teachers, feel like professionally trained and everything. Right. That's what school should be about. It should be about learning and creating an environment where our babies can grow and thrive.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because you are naming the things that the federal government pays for in our school system. So I also appreciate you giving the things that people can do. Like, you can get find out what's happening in your local community, talk to your local elected officials, figure out what the plan is, get together with other advocates, reach out to your federal. You can still call your Congress people, right? You can still call your senators. So all those things we encourage people to do to stay active on this issue, and all the other issues, right, that are facing our communities right now. So Adaku Onyeka Crawford, I want to thank you for the work that you and your team at the Opportunity to Learn program are doing, and for all the work that the Advancement Project does to really protect our communities at multiple levels. So I appreciate you joining. Would love to have you back on and maybe just update us on the work that you all are doing at some point soon.
Of course, I'd love to come back anytime.
Okay, so when we come forward, we're going to talk about the fight back that is happening out in the streets. Stay with us. This is KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to the Black Pack.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Tammy Eswick with BIN News Now. The National Urban League's annual convention is this week, and we're hearing from President Mark Morial about the state of Black America. He also spoke about the Trump administration taking health care away from moms and older Americans.
You can take it away and you don't feel it because you don't have any compassion.
Rallies happened nationwide yesterday to push back against President Trump's policies. In Chicago, Black Mayor Brandon Johnson spoke at a rally.
We will